everybody, and welcome to I Can't Believe It's Not News, your favorite podcast about fake news. I'm Beth.
And I'm Kelly.
Hey, Kelly. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. It's the day after Turkey Day. It's Black Friday.
What?
Gobble,
Gobble, gobble.
gobble. Gobble, gobble.
How was your Thanksgiving?
It was pretty good. We have a really small Thanksgiving because it's just my husband, my son, and I. So we get the smallest turkey in the world.
Nice.
And it's, it's just a small family day for us.
Very nice.
How about you?
I had a smaller Thanksgiving too, because this is the first year that I didn't have my kids. They were with their dad. So it's kind of odd. So, but we're celebrating on Sunday.
Oh, nice.
With the kiddos. So I'm having 2 Thanksgivings, which there is nothing wrong with that.
There really isn't. I was a child of divorce, and I used to go from my grandmother's house, my mom's house. Mm-hmm. We would eat early, and then I would go to my dad's mom's house, and we would eat later.
Right.
And so I used to have to try to fit 2 Thanksgivings in the same day.
I think a lot of people do that, even if they're not divorced. It's just like in-laws versus, in-laws versus in-laws. Like if you're all in the same area, like I think a lot of people do that. So it'll be good. I wasn't like super sad or anything. So that was good. Like good. I think it worked out just fine. And I will have my Thanksgiving with the kiddos on Sunday. So it'll be fine.
That'll be really nice.
Yeah. So I think in honor of Thanksgiving, we should really talk about some turkeys.
Yay! Let's talk turkey. Let's talk some real funny fake news. We've been real serious for a long time.
Are you kidding me?
We have. We've been talking about some really serious topics lately.
We have been. And we should. So let's just say right off the bat, we are going to take the month of December off. We need a break.
That's
badly.
Right. Yeah, we need to spend some time with our families and go enjoy all those snow fights that you get into when you would otherwise be doing so much research.
Right. So we're going to take the month of December off and just enjoy the holidays with our families. And then we'll be back in the new year a little bit more refreshed and ready to dive into all those big issues again.
Yeah, it'll feel like a year, but it'll only be a month.
That's right. So we wanted to end, this will be the last episode for this year. So we wanted to end on something a little bit lighter. I think we're going to talk about penises.
Yeah, there's so many penises in this episode. It's crazy how much fake news there is that surrounds penises and dumb men.
That you know what? There might be a trend there. It's just that like men, there's a lot of like fake news surrounding penises. I don't know why, but there just is. So Kelly, should we start with that one?
Let's do it.
We have that great segue to it.
Yeah, it's great. I ran into a story that I wanted to talk about a little bit. I don't want to go into too much discussion of it, but there is a story that would be right up my favorite murderer's alley if it was a real story. But the headline says, Bloomington police discover over 200 penises during raid at funeral employee's home.
Wow, that's a lot of penises.
It's a lot.
That's a big collection for anything.
It is. If you had 200 pieces of art, you might have a problem.
Right.
Start running
out of wall space.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. So at the end of August, a news story popped up from what looked like one of those, it's a spoof site or a fake site that's based on a real site that makes you think that this is real news. So in this case, it was foxnews-us.com, which is a good indicator that it is a fake news site, but that's not right. It's hard to watch because it looks like the regular website you first.
That's also a good indicator that this isn't a satire site because it's not like The Onion or, something like that. They're trying to make people believe that this is actually Fox News.
That's right.
So this is actual fake news. It's not satire.
That's right.
Okay.
So the people who put this up said that an employee from the Clark County Coroner's Office was arrested for organ trafficking. and that by the time they finished pressing charges, he had over 600 charges against him. But the story goes on to describe the office that the man, and it says the office. And so that led me to believe the office he was working in was lined with shelves filled with glass jars containing human penises, 218 of them.
Okay.
But apparently no one noticed. And it just makes me wonder, like, how long was he doing that? And who even came up with this idea? Because at what point do you think organ trafficking, but yet he's keeping them in jars? Do you think he already sold some? Do you think that that's how organ trafficking works? I'm very confused about the people who even made this fake news story.
Yeah, I'm seeing some things here that I have some questions about, but then I'm remembering this is just a fake news story. Like somebody sat down and just typed this out. It's not like they had any research or any thought process for it to actually make sense. So we just have to stop ourselves from trying to make sense of it and just take it for what it is. It's just
maybe he was just creating a story for Reddit's No Sleep and was like, this isn't going anywhere. I'm just going to make this a fake news story because I also work at this fake news website. So God knows, but seriously, this was one of those ones that I read and I thought, well,
I'm thinking
that is a story.
This was a scare tactic. So they tried to pass it off as Fox News. So a bunch of old white men are reading this and they're now scared to die that their penises are going to be stolen and embalmed and put into a jar in somebody's office.
No one's taking your old man penis. No one wants that.
This was written by a woman. I'm gonna just. She's like, I'm gonna scare so many men tonight. That's pretty good. All right, so that was funny story number one. All right, so I have one here for you, Kelly, to take you back to your Florida roots, and also I think Elizabeth and I pulled the same story, but for Hurricane Irma.
Oh, so that makes sense. Yeah, because I saw there was 2017 this happened too.
Yeah, so this is kind of a repeat for us, but did a man die from shooting a gun at Hurricane Florence? So it was reported that I'm sorry, not reported. This is fake news. So in September 2018, a 33-year-old man in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, died after the bullet he shot at Hurricane Florence rebounded and hit him in the head. Now,
that's a very strong wind.
That is, and very specific wind.
It
is. So, yeah, that didn't happen. It also didn't happen at Hurricane Irma. But here's the thing. There is like a Facebook event. So it said the Facebook event mentioned by CGC News is real and had 34,000 would-be attendance as of September 14, 2018. The creator of that viral event included the following disclaimer. Note, do not actually discharge firearms into the air. You could kill someone and cannot frighten a hurricane. I can't believe I actually have to write this. So it's like a Facebook event shooting guns at Hurricane Florence to scare it away was very similar to a September 2017 Facebook event called Shooting at Hurricane Irma, a virtual assembly later characterized by its creator as a joke that spiraled out of control. So people actually showed up to shoot at Hurricane Irma. And so,
jeez. Yeah. No, every single little bit of that sounds as if it's something that I know people will do.
Now,
I was almost going to say it sounds right, but it doesn't sound right. But it does sound like something people will do.
Yes, exactly. So, yeah. So if you do see any events on Facebook created to shoot guns at natural events to scare them away, please know that it's a hoax and it's just supposed to be a joke. And don't take it seriously. And
please don't shoot your firearms, not because it's going to shoot you in the head, but because it's probably going to shoot something.
Yeah, you can actually shoot something. That's what happens when you shoot a gun and bullets go out of it. even if you shoot it up into the air, they actually come down. It's this, I mean, I'm not like super good at physics, but there's like gravity and like the earth and metal. I mean, it's just.
I mean, I think all of those things are involved.
Yes. Yeah. And you don't want to be the person who's just trying to shoot a hurricane and then you accidentally kill somebody's like kid or grandma or people in general.
That's right.
That would be bad.
Or even animals, because there are lots of animals running around during a hurricane because people just let their animals go.
That's true. Okay, Kelly, what else you got for us?
So I found a story because I always like to check on Florida because some of my favorite fake news comes out of Florida. So this one is from a satire site, but it was really, really, really good because it's such a crappy article. And even the Photoshop on it is pretty ridiculous. And I will include this photo on the blog. But the person involved here, when you see the photo, you'll see that it's a skinhead who has the word racist tattooed, kind of, on his forehead and a swastika tattooed, kind of, next to his eye. And I'm only saying kind of because this is very bad Photoshop. I mean, it's very, very bad Photoshop. Or it's done in a pencil, and it's certainly not for this particular case.
Okay.
Actually even search for this person's name just to see if it would show up in Florida. And there was no one in their 20s with this name anywhere in Florida that's noted anyway. But the story goes that a Florida man accidentally burns home down after lighting his Nike shoes on fire in protest of Nike's Colin Kaepernick ad. And do you remember, I think it was like 30 years ago, back in September, when Nike's campaign featured Colin Kaepernick? And the Republicans went crazy and started burning all their New Balance shoes because they thought they were Nikes.
I did hear about them burning the wrong brand of shoes. I heard about them burning their Nike gear and stuff there, or like taping like over the swoosh.
Yeah, and cutting off the swoosh from the top of their socks.
Yeah. So just real quick. So I was at my sister's house not too long ago, and she's wearing this like new Nike shirt, and it like had a thing over the swoosh, like a white block over it. And I was like, "What's going on?" And she's like, "This is how they make them now. Like they're actually making Nike shirts with the swoosh as a white block." I was so confused. I was like, did you tape over your swoosh? Like, yeah. I'm like, what are you doing? And she's like, no, this is how it came. But I didn't.
Yeah, there's a designer for Nike. And I only know this because my husband is a sneakerhead and he is really big into Nikes. And apparently one of the designers is he's well known, and I don't remember his name, but he is very into putting like he puts tags that you aren't supposed to take off, and he'll write, it's almost like it's behind the scene files that are printed onto shoes. So you'll see it'll say like white, or it'll say like off-white, or it'll say different things on the side of it that look like it shouldn't be there. Yeah. Like it was a misprint. And yeah, so they have a bunch of really cool designers who are doing some fun stuff. I'm surprised that they allowed it to go over the logo. Although that said, I'm not surprised by anything Nike does anymore.
Yeah, I was like, oh, okay, whatever. Okay, but tell me about this one, because is this one satire or is this one fake news?
This one is definitely satire because it's from the website Hustlers. And Hustler says that they were founded by Pancho Villa in 1922, and that Hustlers is the most infamous faux tire and satire entertainment website in the world. If it's trending on social media, you'll find it here.
This is actually really good satire because it's very pertinent to what's going on.
It is, but I will say that they misspelled Colin Kaepernick's name. There's only three paragraphs, and they misspelled it in the very first paragraph. And they didn't misspell Kaepernick; they misspelled Colin, which is the weirdest part about it.
That's because Colin's not on the back of their jersey.
Yeah, I guess. That's true.
Well, okay, I'll give you that. But I was like, you know what? This is actually really good. Like this is
bad.
Satire. So tell us what the article said.
So this obviously genuine story says that a 26-year-old man from Florida soaked his Nikes in kerosene and then set them on fire while he was in his garage, as you do when you're setting your shoes on fire. I mean, why use the backyard when you've got an enclosed building right next to your home?
Right.
Why do that? I mean, especially in Florida where it's normally sunny. So the fire spread to his home and burned the whole place to the ground.
I like how in the photo, so I didn't see the photo of the guy, but I do see a photo of like a burned down house, and it's just like a bunch of like folding chairs that survived. And in this like, version of the story, like I can see this guy having folding chairs like instead of dining room table chairs. Like that makes sense. Like it pulls it all together, and it just really wraps it up for me.
Yeah. And actually I will say that I think maybe one of the reasons you're seeing that on the Snopes article is because it looks like a couple of different places had the same fake story.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So it says the same story was also published on other sites with the setting change from Florida to Rochester and Bartlesville. And maybe those places are similar to Florida in their own way. But I would like to point out that those are both cities and Florida is a state. And I'm telling you, if I didn't know it was a faux news website, there's a part of this could ring true.
Right.
For sure.
For sure.
This is definitely something I would believe in Florida.
That makes a good satire is it could actually be true. Because there were a lot of people burning their Nike stuff. And I'm sure that some people got hurt or burned down things from that. It does say on here that in the Snopes article, one jokester, for example, created a widely circulated Facebook post that made it appear he had suffered severe foot burns by setting his Nike shoes afire while he was wearing them. That was also not true.
Aw, that's too bad.
It's just a joke. Oh, here's the picture, though. That's funny.
It did remind me, one of the reasons I pulled this one is because it reminded me of Lisa. Do you remember Lisa Left Eye Lopez from TLC? Yes. So her boyfriend hit her and then left. And I think he was I'm going to say he was a basketball player. I choose not to remember the names of people who abuse women. So I remember her, but I don't remember him. And I know he's super famous, and you can write us if you want to and tell us who it is, but he hit her and she got pissed off with good reason. And she took all of his shoes and he had a big collection of shoes, and she put them in the bathtub and she lit them on fire and she burned his goddamn house down. And I always remember her mugshot and being like, that's something that I would have framed if I was her.
Yeah. Well, this guy, so I clicked on this Snopes article and it says, did a man injure himself by setting the Nike shoes he was wearing on fire? And it's this guy, he's in, he's got these like there's like photos. And he says, the first one says, my name is #mustard and I stand for the flag and to honor at Big and Rich and their sound man and the president. I'm going to burn my Nike shoes. And he's like in the picture wearing the shoes, like in this tracksuit that's like American. And he's got a
full polyester tracksuit.
And he's got
good choice if you're going to light your feet on fire.
And then he's like lighting them on fire in the next one. And then he's like looking at his shoes on fire. And then the last picture is the burned feet. And he just says, I am in the hospital.
Oh my God.
So I mean, this is obviously a prank. Like he's just the way it's just laid out is pretty funny. And it's not the first time apparently that he's done something gone viral for it. So that's actually pretty funny. And it does say that the severely burned feet were of an unidentified patient at the Alfred Hospital in Melbourne, Australia. So obviously those weren't his feet. He wasn't actually burned. You can see that it looks like he did some, not like that he didn't actually light himself on fire, but that like maybe he's the kind of person who could do it and not like a stuntman. That's what I'm trying to think of.
Yeah. Yeah. Or you just take preventative measures and you know what you're doing before you start doing it. Or you have someone right there
with a fire extinguisher. Your shoes are on fire.
As soon as you get the picture.
That's just freaking hilarious. Okay. All right. I have one more for you. Okay. This one is called, Did Canadians face a major donut shortage after the first day of cannabis legalization?
I think so. That feels right.
Does it right?
It does. It does to me.
So it wasn't. It was a satire article by the World News Daily Report, which is a satire site. And but they wrote this article that 17 Tim Hortons in 7 different provinces were forced to close earlier than usual for lack of staff and the shortage of donuts and pastries. So suggesting that
I like that they also had
half their people didn't show up to work now that marijuana is legal, and also they ran out of donuts and pastries. Now this was based on a true story about a 9-year-old girl who set up a shop outside of a dispensary to sell Girl Scout cookies and sold out her supply within the hour. That actually did happen.
Yeah. Yes, she did.
So,
as someone who has visited a dispensary, if you bring your girl selling Girl Scouts right outside of my dispensary, I am probably going to pick up some cookies from you.
I think that's what happened. Why not? So, but yeah, she sold out her stock in like 45 minutes, and it was just happened too. Like in the past, they've always sold the cookies door to door, and they were driving and they saw how long the lines were at this dispensary, so they just stopped to sell the cookies there instead. And that's pretty genius, actually. And how cool is your dad if he's like, hey, let's stop here to sell your cookies, 9-year-old girl.
Do it.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. It's not bad. All right. So because we're a podcast about fake news, I couldn't just let us do funny stories the whole episode.
Oh, man.
I had to pull some.
No, you pulled some really good articles.
Some articles too. Okay. So the first one is by the Neiman Lab. And this is a little bit older article. It's from October 27th of 2017 by Laura Hazard Owen. And it's called, When Fake News is Funny, Is It Harder to Get People to Stop Sharing It? So I wanted to chat about this because we're talking about all this funny fake news. And some of it's satire, which, as you know, I love satire. And I don't have any problems with satire, except for when people claim that it's satire after they get called out for fake news. That's my problem with it. Right. But fake news, I still have a pretty big problem with. So like that one article about the penises that was actually fake news and not satire.
I know. How dare they? That's not, it was not even funny. There was nothing in it that I was like, ah. It was just oh, well, that's kind of a gross story.
And like, what's the point of making that up, right? But people see it, and maybe they realize it's fake news, but they think it's funny. And would you tend to share it more if you just thought it was funny and it's not hurting anybody, right?
Oh, definitely. I would probably share a fake funny story. I will say that I would probably try to put a caveat in the post to say that it's not a true story.
Yeah.
But that it's funny.
I could see doing that. But
that way I'm not actively promoting the fake news part of it.
Right. This article talks about some research by Yale's Gordon Pennycook and David Rand. And I've actually read some of their stuff before. I actually corresponded with Mr. Pennycook and asked him to be on the show, and we just couldn't work out the schedules, but he was open to it. So maybe someday in the future we'll have him on. But they have this bullshit receptivity research. And they found that Facebook's disputed labels are likely to backfire in many cases because people are more likely to share it still. So they find the presence of these labels cause study participants to rate unlabeled false stories as slightly more accurate, an implied truth effect. If Facebook is seen as taking responsibility for the accuracy of information in its newsfeed through labeling, readers could start assuming that unlabeled stories have survived scrutiny from fact checkers, which is rarely correct. And they did say that, encouragingly, the students at Dartmouth College find that the effects of Facebook-style disputed banners on the perceived accuracy of false headlines are larger than those of Mr. Pennycook and Mr. Rand observed. So the proportion of respondents rating a false headline as somewhat or very accurate in our study decreased to 19% with the standard Facebook disputed banner from 29% in the unlabeled condition. So that's good. It goes down even further to 16% when the warning instead states that the headline is rated false. So they did say this as well. So they were talking to a group of psychology people at Harvard, and Mr. Pennycook said he thinks that most people simply don't consider the accuracy before they share news. And that in his and Rand's research, they found that simply asking people a question about accuracy before they considered which fake news articles they would share, the subjects were asked to rate the accuracy of one politically neutral story, led to a reduction in fake news sharing among both Clinton and Trump supporters, and even among people who said they didn't consider accuracy to be an important prerequisite for sharing. So I think what they're saying there is basically like, if you can get people to stop and like just think for 10 seconds before they share something, it actually helps reduce the sharing of fake news, even if it's funny. So they pointed out that people may not be sharing fake news simply because they find it funny, whether or not it's accurate. And so like the room chuckled, for instance, when Pennycook pulled up a screenshot of a fake news story claiming that Mike Pence credited gay conversion therapy with saving his marriage.
I mean, are we sure?
So they said, is there a way to get people to not share fake news that they think is funny? And would that be a different kind of intervention from getting them to not share fake news because it's accurate? So they don't really answer that question in this article, like at all. They go on to talk about the honest ads.
The honest ads.
Yeah, they go on to talk about that, which great, but it doesn't really answer that question about the funny. So I'm going to ask you, Kelly, what do you think?
Well, I mean, I think the funny articles are a lot less damaging. So there's a part of me, I don't think when I look at that story about the guy burning his shoes, I don't think about that necessarily as a right versus left thing so much as I think of it as a idiot versus non-idiot thing, because it's such a stupid thing to do.
That was a satire article. Like it wasn't.
Oh, that's true. So I'm thinking more.
If we're looking at like the penises one, or even the one with the shooting at the hurricane, because even though that wasn't really a satire article, because it was like an event. It was an event that was created like as a joke. But there are a lot of people that take shooting at things very seriously. And, tens of thousands of people signed up as interested. And not everybody gets the joke. And I think that's the problem, is that it's really hard when you think something's funny and you think everybody's going to get the joke and they don't. And then it becomes something bad because not everybody gets the same jokes, right?
Right. But I think there you end up getting into a conversation about the First Amendment, because what they're saying is from what I'm seeing in the article, it's talking about should Congress be submitting bills that sort of regulate this type of fake news, or at least should they be able to pass bills to regulate the companies like Facebook and Twitter and Reddit that are the largest proponents of making these sort of stories viral? Like, should they be pushing them to do something more? And I mean, to be fair, it's been a battle over the past year. Certainly the past year has seen the worst battles of fake news on those sites. But I will say that Twitter seems to have come around a lot.
Twitter is basically self-regulating. They're doing what the Honest Ads Act would do without that act being passed.
Well, I mean, I go back and forth with that because, well, yes, I think you're right. I still don't think they're getting rid of all the bots, because the bots help boost their numbers for their advertising sales. And so they're never going to be honest about the number of bots from the Ukraine or Russia or really anywhere. I mean, because that's not the only places they are. So I think they're doing good with shutting down more of the white supremacists for the most part. And it looks like Reddit has been doing that as well, which is good. But I mean, Reddit's problem is always just that it's so open platform. You can just, and same thing with Twitter, you can sort of climb right back in. I think with Twitter, they have a more on top of it policy with getting things shut down.
No, I actually listened to a podcast recently. It was Katie Couric's podcast, and they had the CEO of Reddit on, and he was talking about what they were doing to fight back against this kind of thing. And they're doing, mean, they are doing quite a bit. I don't remember everything off the top of my head or even his name, but it was interesting. It was interesting to hear. And it's definitely something that I think they're aware of and that they're working on. It didn't seem like they were taking it lightly and saying like, oh, well, c'est la vie, what can we do? They were like, yeah, we're super on top of this. And you'll notice that people are getting shut down now much quicker than they used to be because they've got the processes in place to notify them of something going on. So, but it is partly on the users of Reddit to let them know that, hey, something not okay is happening, and that'll help them get shut down faster.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying is it's so open platform. You can create a new subreddit for almost anything. And I mean, I know just from stuff I've seen over the past 2 years as my eyes have been open to just how much Nazism and white supremacy, and it's not like it hasn't existed. It's just coming out of the shadows. It's emboldened the past 2 years, but I've been doing more to find out about it and to, do whatever I can to help stop it. But I've learned that there's a bunch of code words and they're always changing and things like that. So some of them never change, like America First never fucking changes.
You know what? I think the good thing is though, is that with them stepping out of the shadows, then more and more people are aware of it and can shut it down. Whereas when they're in the shadows and they're working, without people knowing about it, it just keeps going. So as much as I don't like that it's coming out, it is inevitable that it had to think it needs to be shut down. So the only way for us to rebel against it is to know about it. But I think, though, I have another article here by Pointer. And I guess kind of my point, and obviously we're trying to keep this episode light, so we've delved into Nazis and white supremacists. We're really good at our jobs. So I think this article is important because, sometimes it's really hard to give up things that we like or that we want. But things are changing and fake news is changing things. And there might be some things that we have to give up. So what this says is, in the era of fake news, is April Fool's Day funny anymore? And this was written back on March 30th, 2018 by Daniel Funk. And so he talks about, for a long time, like news organizations have published fake news on April Fool's Day. So back in 1933, the Capital Times reported that the dome had toppled off of the Wisconsin State House. In 1977, The Guardian published a lengthy travel feature story on the fictional Sand Sheriff Islands. And PC Computing Magazine covered a fake bill banning the use of internet while drunk in 1994. So, it's been like a thing where papers would publish something fake on April Fool's Day. But, they're saying like this year it feels different. Research shows that, at least on Twitter, claims that fact checkers have debunked spread further and faster than those fact checked as true. Governments around the world are contemplating how to fight misinformation. The term fake news itself has been weaponized by politicians and used to jail journalists. So with that in mind, would an April Fool's Day hoax be smart, right? So they talked with this professor, Maurice Schweitzer, who's a professor at the University of Pennsylvania's Wharton School, who teaches emotions, decision-making, and humor. I thought it would be a great class to take. I want to take that class. So they talked a little bit about like the history and like where it came from. And it's kind of baffled academia for a year. Nobody really knows for sure where it came from. There's a couple ideas out there, but they seem kind of boring, to be honest.
Well, I liked the idea that the change of seasons reflects the idea of unpredictability. And that's where the idea may have come from. Now, I don't know. They're saying that that's not necessarily the only reason, but I kind of like the idea that it's just expect the unexpected, because it's the change of seasons and it could be rainy or it could be completely dry, and you could be down for the count for a month with the pollen count because your sinuses are clogged.
Boring. Sorry.
You're never going to breathe again.
But we don't know really where it came from. We just know that it's here still. So they talked a little about some of the corporations that have jumped on to like the April Fool's thing. And I was like, oh yeah, I remember that. So Taco Bell did one where they were going to purchase the Liberty Bell and call it the Taco Liberty Bell. And Virgin Atlantic was talking about a new airplane that flaps its wings.
That's great.
So, and then they started talking about pranks. And they talked about the difference between, the fine line between humor and outright falsehoods. And they said there's a lot of sites out there that claim that they're writing satire and they're actually might just be writing fake news. So they asked her, what do you think the line is when something is funny and when it's just malicious? And she said she didn't think it was a fine line. She thinks it's a fuzzy line. I can kind of agree with that. When does something cross from being offensive to being funny? And part of it depends on the context and it depends on who you are. And she said, what makes something funny is that it's a violation, that we're challenging something, but it's also in a safe space, that it's somehow benign. So the jokes we make, they're challenging us to sort of think differently, of they're making something up, but they're doing it in a benign kind of way. And when it feels like it isn't benign, that's when jokes can feel offensive. And so there's a term called psychological distance. The psychological distance is how close or far you are from something, both in time and space and in social proximity. So if I make fun of your social or ethnic group, that's going to be closer. If I make a joke about 9/11, that's close in time. If I make a joke about the War of 1812, that's very distant in time. And if things are so psychologically distant, it might not challenge you thinking. It might not be a disruption or offensive even a little, and there's nothing funny about it. But if I strike too close psychologically to your thinking, then it could be offensive and also not funny. So there's this like gray area, and it's very hard, particularly today when you're trying to reach a mass market, to get a point of what is funny for people without offending people. And you see even celebrated comedians that do this for a living. They will offend some people by overstepping where they thought it was funny, but there are some people who will see it as possibly offensive.
And I mean, you tell me what you think. I don't take as much offense from comedians because I think part of their job is sort of like a tongue pushing at a tooth. Like they push to see how far they can go before it hurts, because a lot of comedians are pushing that barrier. And I know I love Michelle Wolf, and I saw her here in Portland with a friend when she came, and she said at the beginning of the show she's trying out new material. So you might like some of it, you might like none of it. And I know that most of the show was really funny, but then there were a couple of things that were more personal to me that I found not as funny. But I know every April 1st, as it rolls around, I see people who say things like, there are certain things you don't joke about. Like, please don't joke about being pregnant. That's been a big hot button issue for a couple of years now, because there are a lot of people who lose their children either, or can't get pregnant and have been trying for a really long time. And those are really personal ideas to them. So I think that, if you're going to play a prank or you're going to do something, like, don't go for a stupid low hanging fruit. Like, oh, I just got married, blah, blah, blah. Or, oh, we're going to have a baby. It seems like, choose something that's actually going to be funny, not just, haha, I'm pulling a prank on you. It's not really true. It seems like, if you are trying to be funny, as long as you're not being way super offensively funny, because remember, there's so many people on social media. Think of your most offended friend and maybe don't Stay away from all of their hot button issues because those people still like to laugh, even if they love to be offended. Usually they still like to laugh.
Well, I will say this. A couple of years ago, I saw Ron White, the comedian.
Yeah.
I was super offended by his set, and I was also laughing, and I felt bad about myself. After it felt very, very weird because I knew it was like crowd mentality. Like you're laughing because everybody else is. And it's not that he's not funny. It's just that I could see through the jokes to what he was actually saying. And I was uncomfortable with what he was saying.
You think that it was more serious than jokes?
There was some subject matter that was, his joke was funny, but the subject matter wasn't funny. And I just remember laughing, but being like, wait a second, that's not funny. Or this is if we were having this conversation, as a friend, and he was telling me about this issue, I would be trying to help him understand something else. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So I have that to say. And then I do think that April Fool's pranks are best when they're played between your family or your friends, or more one-on-one. To do a Facebook prank, that's where you're gonna have to worry about offending people or whatever. But if I don't know, I'm not married anymore, so if I had a boyfriend and I called him up on April Fool's and said I'm pregnant, that might be funny. Right? Or it might not be.
Yeah, it's not funny to my husband. My husband would be like, what? You're what?
Right.
What? What'd you say?
Yeah.
Jesus, did you really say what I think you said?
If I called my sister on April Fool's Day and was like, I got married, that would actually be pretty funny. But to do it on a Facebook thing would be a little bit different. I think it's just knowing your audience, So they did say at the end of the article, they asked the question, considering all this, do you think April Fool's Day still has the potential to be funny or provide that reprieve that was needed in the past? And they said, that they did. They think it's still relevant as long as, this is a lot of words. Okay, I think it remains relevant as long as we have a status hierarchy, which has characterized every human civilization throughout time. This affords an opportunity to challenge the status hierarchy, to bend the normal rules that we adhere to. And I think it creates a safe space for many people. That was an intense answer.
It is.
Yeah.
I like it though. I mean, I'm okay
so
with
using it to create a safe space to bend rules is basically what they're saying.
Yeah.
And that's cool. So just keep it safe about which rules you're bending, I guess is the answer there.
Yeah.
Okay.
That sounds right.
All right. So we can still have some fun. We can still do April Fool's pranks. I do love a good prank. I really do. I'm not above pranking.
Oh, yeah. No, I love a good prank. My husband loves to scare. He is more of a scare person than a prank person. So, yeah, I have told him before that I am probably going to die of a heart attack one day when he scares me, because he will do stuff like wait outside of the bathroom when I'm brushing my teeth and getting ready for bed, and he'll wait in the dark. He did this recently. He waited in the dark, and then I walked out of the bathroom, and there's no door on our bathroom. So I just walked out of the bathroom, and it was dark in my bedroom, and I thought he was still in there. So I was talking to him, and then I was like, oh, you're not in here, because there's no one in the bed. And I take one step and he grabbed my ankle, and I just kept screaming. He had to stand up and be like, are you going to be okay? And I was like, I don't know. I don't know if I'll ever be okay.
My family had instituted a rule, because I do love to scare people. They had instituted a rule that I could only scare people on Halloween. And then that way, the other days of the year, they didn't have to worry about stepping outside the bathroom and having their ankle grabbed.
Yeah, I worry about it on
things like that. And I thought that was fair, because I didn't want anybody to have a heart attack or feel scared all the time in their own house. But it gave me like on Halloween that release to like really scare some people. And I don't know why I like to scare people. I just do. It's just fun. I will remember that about Shay. And next time I'm at your house, I'm going to scare the fucking crap out of him for you. And then he can see what he thinks.
He's unscarable. Yeah, I've been trying for a really long time. I get back at him in different ways. Like I have a plan right now to get him back by putting a sticker on his car that he's going to be really mad. He's going to be really mad that it's on his car.
I remember one time the kids and I were scaring each other. And of course, like, you know, the kids, like you can hear them and everything. And so you have to pretend to be scared, right? And so basically we were pretend scaring each other, but we had just gotten a new stove and the big box was in the hallway. And I got into the box and I could hear the kids coming and I could tell like they did not know I was in there. And so when they came by, I jumped out of the box and Hannah got so mad at me. She started, she screamed and she's like, she goes, "Mom, that wasn't funny. You actually scared me." And I was like, sorry.
Sorry, not sorry, little girl.
You've been trying to scare me all day. And actually, one time she really got me. I was coming out of my office and I had like all these dishes in my hands. Like I had like a couple of plates and a coffee and I was like juggling everything. And she was just standing there and she like stepped out and was like, "Boo." And I was like, I almost dropped all the and I was like, "Good one. Yeah, good job." And then she still brings it up. She's like, "Remember that time I scared you and you almost dropped the dishes?" I do. I was super proud.
I do remember.
All right, let's do our jams.
Okay. I think you're first.
I think I am too. Yeah. So I just heard this really cool song a couple weeks ago called "Should See Me in a Crown" by Billie Eilish. So I really like this song. I think you would really like it.
Yeah.
It reminds me of a little bit, just a little bit of the song Monster that you like.
Oh, the Kanye West song?
Yeah.
With Nicki Minaj?
Yep.
All right.
So listen to this song and see what you think. But anyway, this song was actually inspired by the hit BBC show Sherlock. So in the third episode of the second season titled The Ryenbach Fall, there's a scene where Jim Mordery says, "You should see me in a crown." And her and her brother were like, "Hey, that's jiggy as fuck." And then they sort of made a song about being jiggy, I guess. And "You should see me in a crown." So there it is. That was her quote.
Yeah.
So
that was the episode where he was supposed to have died, where he went over the water. Moriarty. I've watched the shows, but I mean, I read the book. All the Sherlock Holmes stories. Those are good. It's not my jam of the week, but they're good. And I will listen to it just because it is related to it. I love Sherlock Holmes. I feel like they are so well written.
I haven't watched them yet. I need to put them on my list because I've heard really good things about them.
About the show, Sherlock? Yeah. The show is it's good. It mixes a lot of new stuff with the old stories, it makes it really palatable.
Oh,
but
nice.
I definitely will say, I mean, the stories are really short.
Yeah.
I would just maybe start with one. A lot of people recommend, like, I think it's A Study in Scarlet is one of the first ones that a lot of people read, or The Hounds of Baskerville because it's so popular. But yeah, I mean, they're super short. They're easy to just pick up and read like a story and see if you're into it. But they're really cool little detective stories, all about finding details. And he's a big cokehead. So they do that in the movies with Robert Downey Jr. They touch more on his drug use. They don't really do a lot with, but I'm going to check out the song. Tell me about the song.
It's really good. You'll like it. So take a listen.
Okay. My jam of the week is actually my jam of the year. I've tried to find a way to sort of shove it into episodes, and I didn't want to not do the book itself justice because it's so amazing. The book is a book called The Hate You Give, and it's by Angie Thomas. It was made into a movie that just came out, but I read it at the beginning of the year because it was one of the 2017 books of the year on Goodreads. And I try to go through those and come up with lists. And a friend had recommended it as well. So I read it as one of my first books. And it's an amazing book. It's a young adult book. First of all, it's not even an adult fiction book, although it reads like one. It's about a young girl named Star who goes to a nice private school, but she still lives in a poor neighborhood with her family. It's been a while since I've read it, but I want to say her parents own a shop. And so they have a little bit of money. There's like a family dichotomy where even though they have the money to leave the neighborhood, her father definitely doesn't want to leave the neighborhood because he feels like that would be abandoning his neighborhood, abandoning the people around him. And the way to make the neighborhood better is by staying. And in the story, she goes to a party and is taken home by a guy that she's known forever, who also lives in that neighborhood. His name is Khalil, and they're stopped by the cops. And the story goes into, that's a fairly common thing. He's told to get out of the car. He goes to reach for a brush in the car door, and the cop thinks that he's reaching for a gun, or whatever the cop thinks. He shoots him. And she's right there. And it's the story of her dealing with this on top of the whole neighborhood and the whole city dealing with a white cop shooting a black teenager who was unarmed. And there's so much to the story that I really can't even start to get into it. But like, she has an uncle or a godfather who's on the police force who is a black man. And he also has his own emotions about the story because obviously, he's a police officer, but he's also a black man. So he has a lens that he sees this through. Stuff happens as she comes out and tells her story. There's a lot of talk about code switching as she has to go back to prep school, where she definitely a minor and her friends are not necessarily black. And so there's a way she has to speak around those kids, and there's a way she speaks around the other kids. And I didn't know a lot about code switching because I'm a 40-year-old white woman, and if I don't read stories and if I don't have some way of finding that information, no one has to teach me. I wouldn't expect someone to do that, but I loved that I was able to learn more in this book. And I could go on and on and on forever about it, but I really think people just need to read it or listen to it. Or even if you're like, I don't like books at all, go see the film, just do whatever, because really seriously, this is a story that I think answers a lot of questions about, why does Colin Kaepernick and why do so many of these athletes, why are they kneeling? And what is the big question when it comes to the disparity between, young black men being shot and killed unarmed? It's an epidemic, and we have to start doing about it. And I don't mean to bring the whole thing down. I know it's a big bummer. I didn't mean to do that. But yeah. I'm bringing the jam
to a new place.
But I just really feel like it's an important story, and I think everyone should read it.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I'd heard about the movie, but great for the year.
I will tell people our age that there's a lot of talk about old 90s references from hip hop or from TV, like the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, which is great. So there's all kinds of stories, and the name of the book actually comes from Tupac Shakur, because his tattoo, Thug Life, it stands for something, but thug stands for the hate you give, and it's like the hate you give little infants fucks everyone is what Thug Life. Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, hey, if you like this episode, don't forget to rate and tweet at us, Facebook at Podcast Fake News. If you want to send us suggestions or things that you think are funny or not funny, podcastfakenews@gmail.com. And don't forget to follow our blog at pod.com, and then head on over to Patreon and give us $1. So thank you for listening and for supporting us this year. 2018 was a wild ride.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that in 2000 we'll be able to figure out something to talk about regarding fake news.
Wouldn't it be great if we just got put out of a job doing this, because no more fake news existed, but I don't see that happening. So I think we'll have 6,000 things to choose from when we pick back up in January.
We'll be like, I remember last year I tried to take this break because Elizabeth had decided to leave the podcast, and I had met you and was going to take a little bit of time, and I couldn't even do it. We ended up recording that first episode, and I think I released it before January.
Yeah.
So I definitely think this time I can take the month off.
Oh, good.
I think I need it.
Yeah, I hear you.
And you're already trained this year, so I don't have to do anything.
Yeah, I'm still here.
You're still here. So cool. Well, hey, everybody, don't forget until 2019, don't forget, spread jam.
Not lies.